Check it out, guys. Look, you know what this is? Florida. We're about to begin the first session ever on the vlog in the state of Florida. Is that true? We never made it to Florida before this. Sacrilege, because this is a huge state and it's a huge poker market, so should be good times. We're gonna have a bunch of meetup games going on back here. We're gonna have 3-5, no limit hold'em, just about to get underway. It is 5:30 in the PM, Wednesday afternoon here at the Isle Casino in Pompano Park. We're about to hop in there. What more is there to say? Should be fun, should be lots of double board bomb pots, should be some beverages, should be plenty of straddles, and some gambling. Hopefully some run good. Hopefully we'll find some run good, keep the meetup game run good flowing in this direction. All right, I'm just kind of rambling here, just kind of filling time. This is what you do as a vlogger, you know, you're supposed to set the scene, you're supposed to talk to your audience. I'm talking to you guys. All right, let's go play poker. Okay guys, the first table, lots of interesting things happen on that first table. On my way over to the second table, but just mention a couple things here real quick. We got the double board bomb pots up and running right away. My first one, I looked out at Queen 9 of diamonds, and we were playing $25 a person, 9 ways. We flop a gutter ball on the top and a flush draw on bottom, so not a bad couple of flops, all things considered. There's an early position bet, $255. I'm not an expert here. I decided to call. I'm not too sure I love my flat call. Maybe since we have equity, decent equity on both boards, I think a jam might be better. But I decided to flat here. We go heads up and we turn a pair on the top board and we brick on the bottom board. My opponent goes ahead and jams all in. I think it's about like $500 maybe. Again, still have decent equity here, and now we have a better hand on top, although if he has like a king high flush draw, that's a pretty bad situation. We're drawing damn near dead. Still have the gutter ball though, so I'm just gonna go ahead and call. Didn't come all this way out to Florida to fold, so we call it off, and we're off to see 2 river cards. We brick out on the top one, and unfortunately it's a diamond on top, so that removes one of our drawing cards on the bottom. But good news is that it's another diamond on the bottom, so we end up with a flush, and my opponent has king 6. So he's got top pair on the top one, nothing going on the bottom board. So I wonder if jamming it on the, you know, on the flop, maybe he folds that king. But once he leads out for 200 and he's only got 500 left, not too sure he's just going to find a fold there. But maybe it would have been the same result, maybe not, who knows. But happy to chop this one. In this next hand, there's a $10 straddle under the gun. It folds around to the small blind who limps in, and we look down at ace king off suit in the big blind. Go ahead and raise it up to $45. The straddler and the short stack in the small blind makes the call. Flop comes king 5-3 with 2 spades. Small blind checks. I go ahead and bet for $75. The straddler calls, and the small blind goes ahead and jams all in for $85. So only $10 more, only one option. I call and straddle calls. Turn is an offsuit 6, which shouldn't change anything aside from maybe deuce 4 suited, kind of unlikely, maybe 5-6, somewhat unlikely, but possible. I'm gonna go ahead and bet and see what happens here. I don't want to give any free cards to flush draws, and I want to charge king queen still. So I go ahead and bet $190, and once again the player in the straddle makes the call. River's kind of interesting. It's the ace of spades, so the front door flush arrives on the river. Since I probably wouldn't bet a hand like king queen, the flush gets there, so it's hard for him to call with the worst 2 pair now. Maybe we can induce a bet from a hand like 5-4. Something that flops some equity and turns some equity as well, and wants to turn his hand into a bluff there on the river. So I go ahead and check it over to him, and he thinks for a little while before checking back. I go ahead and show, and my opponent in the straddle mucks his hand, so that's a good sign. The player in the small blind rolls over pocket 3s, so flops himself a set, and we're basically drawing dead versus him going forward. We do win a side pot though, so all things considered, not a bad situation. One more crazy hand here, another double board bomb pot, this time $20 times 9 people. We have 10-3 offsuit in early position. Flop nothing on top, but we do flop bottom 2 pair on the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and lead out here. I bet $200. Player in the middle position jams all in. Player in late position jams all in. The button jams all in for less. And again, not a super ideal situation. Could be up against a better 2 pair or even a set on the bottom. Even a hand like King Jack is gonna have pretty good equity here. versus us, if not be a favorite. I don't really know equities in these things, but anyway, I'm not folding. Again, didn't come all the way to Pompano Beach to fold bottom 2 pair. So we're all in 4 ways here. Middle position 1 has Jack 7. The late position player has Jack 7 as well, and the player on the button has Jack 9. So we're off to see a bunch of cards here. We end up with nothing on the top, and we end up getting counterfeit on the bottom. It doesn't look too good, but it turns out we are going to be not losing too much money. We end up quartering the Jack 7s, and the Jack 9 scoops us, but he was a short stack. We lose some money to him, but it turns out not too bad overall. We end up losing maybe $150 or $200 at the end of the day. All right, that's a lot. It's hard to explain these double board mont pots, especially 4 ways. The dealer did a great job of making sure the pots were right. We also had another dealer who's actually playing in the game, a dealer from another casino, but that was very helpful. Chopping up a double board 4 ways, not an easy task, but they did it perfectly. All right, moving on to table 2. This is a lovely spot to go over some hand histories. Nice and quiet out here, some fresh air. All right, over on the second table now, looking down at 10-8 of hearts from early position. Normally maybe a little bit loose, but meetup game very much well within the range. So go ahead and raise it up to $20, and we see 3 callers. Flop comes 8-4-4 with 2 spades. There's a check out of the blinds. I'm gonna go ahead and put in a bet here of $40. Can charge some draws here and can also provide for some equity denial. So kind of a multi-purpose bet there. Folds around to either the small blind or big blind, I can't quite remember, but he puts in a check raise. Pretty decent size raise, makes it $155 to go. Not in love with this spot, but there's plenty of draws available, and we have a pair. So he's basically repping a 4 and nothing else. I'm gonna go ahead and see the turn here, which is an offsuit 10. So interesting card where we are now beating hands like ace 8, but we're still losing to a 4, of course, as well as maybe a slow played hand such as pocket jacks pre-flop. Is that possible? I'm not too sure. Either way, he doesn't stop betting. He bets $280, and again, since we're still beating a very small sliver of a value range, such as ace 8, maybe some other 8s as well, plus some draws available, I'm gonna go ahead and make the call and see what happens on the river, even though we're not super deep at the moment. Probably only about $300 going into the river. River's an offsuit 5, and he checks it over to me. I'm just gonna go ahead and show this hand down. I'm not too sure what I can get value from, unless it's a sticky, sort of non-believing 8 on that flop. But I just decided to play it safe and check it back, and he says he has a 5. So that's good news. We'll go ahead and show, and he mucks his hand and later says that he had 6-5 of spades. He's saying, like, what if, what were you saying? In this next hand, that same player opens for $20 out of the cutoff, and we look down at ace queen offsuit in the small blind. Very standard 3-bet here for me. I go ahead and make it $80, and that player makes the call. Heads up to a fairly dry flop of 3-3-2 with a flush draw. Gonna put in a bet here for equity denial once again. I bet $65, and my opponent calls. River's another 3, so I go ahead and check it. I don't expect him to have too much of a hand here. Also don't expect him to fold any better hands all that often. So after I check it over to him, he goes ahead and bets. He bets $105. I don't think I can fold ace queen here just yet. There's so many draws that are available, and again, we should have equity even versus middling pairs that he might be betting here on this turn card. It's a reasonable sized bet, so I'm gonna go ahead and make the call here, see what happens on the river. River's an offsuit king. Interesting card that could be good for my range. I could turn my hand into a bluff here. The problem is that he could have called the flop with a king high flush draw, so that's very much well within his range. He could have used that as a bluff on the turn. So don't know if I just want to go ahead and bomb away here on this card. I think it's probably better to go ahead and check it over to him. Maybe he will use that card as a bluff card, and then we'll decide whether we want to use our hand as a bluff catcher in this spot. So I check it over to him, see what he does, but he checks it back and announces 3s full of 2s. He shows us the 5 deuce of spades, which is going to be good on this board. Ace queen, no good. I actually made it through one more table before coming out here to take this break. We made it over to table number 3 featuring Mr. Raising the Nuts, Trevor Savage. If you guys haven't checked out his channel, you're missing out, but always good to play with Trevor, always good to see him in a casino or not in a casino. No major hands to report. I did find pocket aces in one spot and raised pre-flop. Got a c-bet in on the flop, but then my opponent folded on the turn. So not a big pot there, and no big hands to report on table number 3. So moving over now, gonna go back inside onto table 4. Let's see what happens. Alright guys, just wrapped up the action over there on table number 4, I believe. Heading into table 5 now, but one interesting hand that went down. Double board bomb pot once again. These things are session defining. 15 or 20, I think $15 a person over here on table 4. I'm looking down at 9-7 of diamonds, so I think these are the kinds of hands that you kind of want in these double board bomb pots. Some possible connection, suited of course helps, and then just something that can connect on 2 boards. You know, when you flop a set with the, what do you call it, a pocket pair, it's usually gonna be tough to flop 2 sets. So here we are, 9-7 of diamonds, heading into a double board bomb pot 9 ways, in which we flop trips on the top board and absolutely nothing on the second board. Action checks to me, and I bet $60, 60 or 65. We see 2 calls. On the top board, nothing changes, and on the bottom board, it's another queen. There's a check before me, and I check as well, and the player on my left bets out this time for $150. The player before me calls. So, interesting spot here where it can probably seem likely that one of the players has a 9 and the other player probably has quads here, because I don't think there's going to be too much drawing happening on either of these boards. There's probably going to be some solid connections. The 7 kicker in our hand, kind of halfway there, you know. We're losing to some hands, we can improve though, and on the second board we have absolutely nothing. Reasonable size bet though, so I make the call. We're off to see the river cards. Again, nothing changes on the top board, it's another low card, so the 7 kicker is possibly in play here. On the bottom board it's another 6. Action checks to the last player, who bets $215 all in. The player before me asks for a count, and then he kind of shrugs and tosses in a chip. So it still seems like the same situation. Player on my left I think has quads. Player on my right, I think, probably has a 9. I think he has quads. I think you have a 9, but I think you have probably a better 9. I can beat 9-6, 9-5, 9-3. The question is, what is this kicker? We could be either getting quartered, or we could be getting half of this pot here. With the price being so cheap, we need to see, I think, for that price, see what's going on here. This player, since he didn't show any aggression, you know, maybe with a better kicker he would have showed more aggression earlier on in the hand. I don't know. Again, not a double board bomb pot expert by any stretch, so I toss in the call here. Let's see what we're up against, and as predicted, the player on my left shows ace queen for quads on the bottom. The player on my right shows 9-7 as well. So not a great situation. We're getting quartered here. It's a dream situation for the ace queen, because he just has to keep putting money in there with quads versus 2 players that have trips. So that's easy for that hand. Not so easy for our hand. Maybe could get away from it, but for these bet sizes, I think it's kind of just a situation where not ideal, but probably can't get away from it either. I don't know, maybe you can make a case for getting away from it. I'm not too sure. Anyway, we're stuck here. We're stuck in this meetup game, down about $700 at this point. So getting play for a couple more tables at least, see what happens. Maybe we can claw it back, find some run good in a double board bomb pot. That'd be nice. Alright guys, just about to wrap here over here at the Isle Casino. Not without a few more hands of note to get on record here. In the first one at the new table, I think table number 5, if I have not lost count yet. Haven't had too many beers, I've only had 2 beers so far. Very first hand that I sit down at, there's a raise from under the gun to $20, a few callers, and we look down at ace king offsuit in the big blind. doesn't get too much more of a premier squeeze spot than this one. So I go ahead and 3-bet it up to $130. The under the gun player thinks for a little while, shrugs, and then ships the chips in there, folds back to us for $250. It's a trivial call, so we are off to the races versus pocket 10s. Not sure how great of a spot it is, considering that there was a bunch of callers in between us. Maybe some of those players held aces, but we're off to C5 cards, and the flop is no good, the turn is no good, but the Barry Greenstein on the river, the ace on the river, is good for us. So
ship it! Ship it, buddy! You're gone. Goodbye.
we find some run good, finally. Shortly after that, it's time for a bomb pot, and this table is playing a lot of bomb pots. Every time there's an ace on the flop, the next hand is a bomb pot. Anytime there's 2 aces on a flop, that's a double board bomb pot the next hand. And if there's an ace in the bomb pot hand on the flop, then that's just another bomb pot immediately after that one. So this table, pretty fun table, playing lots of these bomb pots, and this is one of them. We're looking at a king 5 offsuit, $10, 9 ways. We flop ourselves trips and turn a full house, and we get decent value, all 3 streets versus ace high. Shortly after that, it's another bomb pot for $10 each again, and we are looking down at 9-6 of clubs this time, in which we flopped an open-ended straight flush draw, but the board is paired, so 8-8-7, open-ended straight flush draw. I'm going to try and represent that 8, but obviously I have some backup plans if I happen to get called here. So I bet $45 here, and I see 2 callers, so chances are we're up against at least 1-8, possibly 2. The good news is that we make a flush right away on the turn. It's a jack of clubs. Interesting though is that the small blind leads right out. He bets $125. Don't think there's any option that makes as much sense as flat calling here, so that's what I do, and the other player folds. The river's an offsuit 9, and he leads out again, this time for $200. So I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. Still have, you know, same hand strength, immediate hand strength as we do on the turn. Just going to be a pretty straightforward call here. We block some full houses here with the 9 on the river. We're going to be losing sometimes, of course, but we have ourselves a flush. We prefer a straight flush, but we just have to settle for a flush. I'm going to go ahead and call here, and it turns out we're up against the king high flush. King deuce of clubs doesn't work out for us in this bomb pot. Right back down as soon as we start making some traction here at the meetup game, just get whacked into a bad situation in another bomb pot. I switch tables shortly after that, and in this next hand, there's an early position player who makes it $20 to go. I call with 10-8 of diamonds in the low jack position. The player on the button calls as well, so we're heading 3 ways to a flop, which comes queen 8, 5, rainbow, but with 1 diamond. Early position player checks. I just go ahead and check here with middle pair, good showdown value, and the player on the button does not check. He bets $50. The initial raiser folds, pretty straightforward call here. Turn is a 6 of diamonds, so we do pick up the backdoor flush draw. Check it again to the button. We this time bet $75. So he's giving us a great price. I don't think there's any thought that's going to go into this flat call here once again. We are off to the river card heads up, which is an offsuit 10. Since he bets so small on the turn, it seems to me that he's probably going to have top pair a decent amount of time, but not a great kicker. Seems like he would probably protect his hand a little bit more if he had a stronger hand. If he was really that proud of his hand, it feels like he might bet a little bit stronger. So I'm definitely going to value bet here. I don't want the action to just go check check. I'm going to size down a little bit compared to what I might bet in some other instances. So I bet $110. Could maybe even go a little bit smaller, especially after he just snap folds, which is really surprising. I'm wondering at the time, how does he just know automatically that a 1 pair hand, which I assumed he had, is no good. But later on I heard him say that he actually had pocket 7s. So it makes some sense. Maybe he is betting the flop for some equity denial and picks up an open-ended straight draw on the turn. Does not materialize, and he's left with a very mediocre holding there on the river. So it would have just gone check check. Not going to be too much that I can do. Maybe I can bet $5 on the river. Maybe I can bet $15. Maybe there's some number that he calls, but it's not 110. Last hand of note here. What do you know? It's another double board bomb pot. So many bomb pots happening here at this meetup game. This one we're looking at 10 deuce of hearts. We got the Doyle Brunson. We're off to see 2 flops. We flop ourselves nothing on the top board, but we flop ourselves 2 pair on the second board. Action checks to us, we're in middle position or late middle position, and I'm going to put in a bet here. I bet $100. Folds back to the early position players, and we see 2 callers from those positions. On the turns, we see the 3rd club on top and basically a brick on the bottom. they check it over to me again, and I think I want to keep betting here. I go ahead and bet $350, but you can sort of sense the unsuredness in my voice. Once again, not exactly sure what's the ideal line here in these double board bomb pots, but I'm going to bet it. I bet $350 this time, and once again, both players make the call. So not exactly sure where we're at. Off to see some river cards, which to me appear to be both bricks. Nothing on the bottom board in particular changes too much. So when they both check it to me again here on the river, just gonna go ahead and take my showdown value here. Not gonna go any crazier than we already have. Check it back and see what we're up against. And it turns out the first player in the earliest position has King Deuce. The player in the middle had Ace King, so his Ace High is going to take the top board. The King Deuce is going to take the bottom board. The 10 Deuce is going to take a kick in the balls. It's going to take absolutely nothing from this pot. We don't get half, we don't get anything, we get nothing. We get some pain. The story of our night is going to be these bomb pots, that's for sure. As far as the poker goes, as far as the actual poker goes, really happy with the way I played in hands that were not bomb pots in the actual poker. The bomb pots were just a total disaster for me. I definitely am a massive loser in the bomb pots tonight, and that is going to be the difference maker for me tonight. Get into the game for $1,600. Cash out the game for $820, I think. Yeah. $820. That means we lose $780 here at the meetup game tonight. Bomb pots, I don't know. I got to sign up to a training site which has a comprehensive course on single board and double board bomb pots, particularly those double board bomb pots. They're tricky. Can't really complain too much, or at all. Upwards of 15 tables here at the meetup game, so no complaints whatsoever. The time is upon us. The happy hour time, even though it's midnight, we're well beyond a typical happy hour. But it's time to go get away from these poker tables, get away from these bomb pots, and go grab a beer at the center bar.
Let me buy you a beer. I want to buy you a beer.
I need at least one or two.